Testing, testing. So are we streaming now?
We are.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Let's see, Linda, do you have any announcements to make?
Yes, so I think the only announcement I have is that this is the last class for Refuge and the Three Jewels. Stand by for next module because I haven't heard what's happening just yet, but hopefully we'll know something in the next couple days. But Don Brown is scheduled to do the module on bodhicitta next. So again, stand by for that announcement as far as if we're going to continue streaming or not. Hopefully that is the case. Have you heard anything otherwise?
My understanding is that it's a go for streaming, yeah.
Okay.
Starting
great.
in 2 weeks, but don't take my word.
Okay, yeah, so keep a tab on the Kadampa Center's website for that information. All right, and I think that's the only announcement I have. There will be the completion sheet for this class posted on the website probably tomorrow. I should be able to get it up there. All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. As Linda said, this is the last class. What was originally intended to be a 5-class module, we only had 4 classes. In the Discovering Buddhism module, taking refuge in the Three Jewels. And the homework and the completion exercise and some things like that kind of fell by the wayside as we tried to get this organized. So if you do your daily meditation and do all the readings, you will have completed the requirements for this module, and that'll be everything that you need for the completion card. It's going to be a little bit abbreviated, but I don't think people object to that. I know everybody's feeling like their life is turned kind of upside down and inside out, and we're a little bit a lot of uncertainty right now. So we're going to make this module a simple one for everybody to complete. Tonight I think we will start with some meditation. Even though we're not physically in the same space, I think we can draw some positive energy from each other, knowing that people are out there, taking some time out of the chaos to sit quietly and work on their mind. So I'll begin by reading our usual prayers, Refuge and Bodhicitta, the 4 immeasurables, the 7-limb prayer, and the mandala offering. And then we'll follow that with a short meditation. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Excuse me, my allergies are acting up. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Reverently I prostrate with my bodies, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami. So we'll begin our meditation by establishing our posture. We're either sitting in a chair or on a cushion. Our back is nice and straight but not rigid. Our head is straight on our shoulders, maybe just a couple degrees in front of the vertical. Our eyes are either lightly closed or just very slightly open. Our lips are lightly closed. Our tongue is against the roof of our mouth. Our shoulders are down, not up, but down, and a little bit back, so our chest is open. Our upper arms are away from the sides of our chest. Our feet flat on the floor. Going in and out, I think. If we're sitting on a cushion, our legs are crossed in a position that we feel comfortable with. Let's see if this is okay. Yeah, if I can switch over. Yeah. So just check your posture. Sources of stress or discomfort that are there now, and address them so they don't become an issue during the meditation. Hands are in our lap, right on left, with our thumbs touching. I'm going to switch this out. Yeah, it keeps coming and going. Testing, okay. Begin by taking 3 deep breaths, with the abdomen expanding on the in-breath, so our diaphragm is pulled down, and contracting towards our spine on the out-breath. 3 deep breaths in that manner. And now our breathing returns to its normal pattern. And we already established our motivation with the prayers, but let's go back and concentrate on that a little bit more. Certainly over the past several weeks, we've had the nature of samsara just thrown up in our face. Nothing is certain. Everything is changing. Nothing that we planned is working out the way we thought it would. And we see all around us physical, mental problems, suffering, complications. It's been an incredible teaching about the nature of samsara. And we go for refuge because we want out of samsara. And because we have the bodhicitta motivation, the aspiration to develop our qualities of wisdom and compassion so completely that we ourselves each becomes enlightened, a Buddha. That's the bodhicitta motivation. The suffering of ourself and of others is intolerable. We have to become a Buddha so we can help all living beings. So just think along those lines for a moment. So having set our motivation, we begin the meditation. It's a simple breathing meditation, just the mind on the movement of the breath in and out through our nostrils. Nothing more, nothing less than that. Breath in and out, direct perception. And every time we notice our mind has wandered off, certainly there are a lot of other distractions right now, a lot of other things to place our concentration on, but we just set those aside for right now and come back to the breath. And we can end our meditation with a brief dedication. We can acknowledge that we've done something positive that has made a positive imprint on our mind stream, and think, may that ripen in a way that is beneficial to all sentient beings. Okay. I wanted to go back to something I mentioned in the very first class. This is a quote from Song Rinpoche, who's considered a Buddhist holy person or saint. He was one of the main teachers of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And he says, now you may hear many teachings, but the main fundamental thing you need to know is how to take refuge, what the essence of refuge is, what karma is, and how it is created. Those are the main things you need to know. So he's really simplifying things for us. There are all these wonderful, complex, in-depth teachings of the Buddha, but Song Rinpoche is saying that the two important things are taking refuge, understanding what the essence of that is, and understanding what karma is and how it's created. So in this class so far we've talked about what Buddhist refuge is. We've talked about the two main causes of going for refuge, which are, we can think of them as the two F's, fear and faith, or more accurately, fear or dread and conviction. Fear of the consequences of our action, this is the understanding of karma, and confidence that we can make a positive change, that there's some different way of leading our life, and that the three jewels can show us that way. So this is really also summing up the Four Noble Truths. Understanding the consequences of our action which cause us problems, and two, having confidence that there can be an end to those problems, and we can get out of this cycle of samsara, as it's referred to. And we talked a little bit about the three types of faith or confidence: admiring confidence, aspiring confidence, and convicted confidence. And then we also talked about the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, why they're valid objects of refuge. And I think those are the main points of this module. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about the actual refuge ceremony, and also about the whole idea of taking vows. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, if you are a Buddhist, it is a result of your own choice. Therefore, you should qualify yourself accordingly. The minimal qualification is to avoid the 10 negative courses of action, and cultivate their opposites. And I think most people are familiar with the 10 negative actions. I'm not going to go through those again. Those are in the module on karma. But I think the first sentence is the important one. If you are a Buddhist, it is a result of your own choice. And when we decide to go through a refuge ceremony, a formal refuge ceremony, we're making a choice. In the same way that we choose to graduate from college and go through a graduation ceremony, the same way that we choose possibly to become married and go through a wedding ceremony, baptism ceremonies. There are all sorts of significant ceremonies or rituals in our life that are based on choices. I guess our funeral's not really a choice, but you could say at some very profound level it is. But there are a lot of other ceremonies we go through that are based on choice. And this is a way of formalizing to ourself and to our community that this choice we have made. None of these are something to be entered into lightly. I don't think anyone should feel any rush to go through a refuge ceremony. It should be based on analysis and understanding of the teachings and a sense that this is the path that you want to follow. The actual refuge ceremony itself is quite simple and is not very long. It only lasts 15 minutes or so. We did have one scheduled with Geshe Sampo, but everything's up in the air for right now. But I'm sure there will be one at some point during this year. And if you do decide that you want to participate in this ceremony, you need to pre-register, and that'll be announced in advance. You just can't show up and take refuge because, for one thing, you're given a Dharma name, which is a traditional Tibetan name. So the refuge master has to be prepared with a name for each person who's in the ceremony. But typically there may be anywhere from 5 to 15 people participating in the ceremony, and then there may be some other spectators. It's held here at the center. When you take this ceremony, you're establishing a connection with the master who's running the ceremony. This doesn't have to be your main teacher. There are many people who see His Holiness the Dalai Lama as their primary teacher but have never actually met him and took refuge with someone else. But it has to be someone that you admire and respect. Geshe Sampo, Geshe Gelik, other teachers who come through here may give the refuge ceremony. The person who gives the refuge master is someone who is part of a continual, what we call lineage, that can be traced all the way back to the historical figure of the Buddha. So you are becoming part of that lineage. It doesn't empower you to give refuge to others. That's a very, you have to have very specific trainings and teachings to do that. But you are becoming a part of the lineage of those who have followed the path, those who have taken refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, all the way back to the historical Buddha who lived 2,500 years ago. So, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, if you are a Buddhist, it is a result of your own choice. And by participating in the refuge ceremony, you are making a choice. You're saying to yourself and to others, this is the path I'm going to follow. And typically, it's considered that you're making 3 commitments when you go through a formal refuge ceremony. And theoretically, these are to be practiced for the rest of your life. The first commitment is, having taken refuge in the Buddha, you should not take refuge from the depth of one's heart in worldly gods or objects. Okay? So you're making a commitment not to take refuge in worldly gods or objects, but in the Buddha. Having taken refuge in the Dharma, one should avoid harming any being, either directly by yourself or indirectly by causing others to harm. Okay? So the second commitment is to avoid harming others or causing others to harm people. Having taken refuge in the Sangha, one should avoid entrusting oneself to and keeping company with negative friends and followers of worldly gods. Which doesn't mean, that sounds kind of rigid, but it means from here on out, you're going to spend as much of your time as possible with people who are on a similar path. And I don't think that means that you have to be card-carrying Buddhist, but you want to avoid spending time or being influenced by negative people or those who are followers of so-called worldly gods. So these are the 3 commitments. Inevitably, you break those commitments at some point, unless you're a much better Buddhist than most of us. But that's no reason not to take the commitments. You can always repair them when you have broken them. So 3 commitments: refuge in the Buddha, which means not taking refuge in worldly gods; refuge in the Dharma, which means not harming others, either directly or indirectly; refuge in the Sangha, which means not spending the majority of your time with negative people who have a negative influence on you. So those are the 3 commitments, not really that complicated. It's not like you're committing to do a 3-year retreat or anything like that. Taking refuge is also accompanied by certain practices that are recommended. In regards to the Buddha, we should regard even statues or drawings as the actual Buddha, which is a little bit tricky in that we're not worshiping the statues, we're not worshiping the tankas on the walls, but when we see the Buddha in a tanka, that should be like we are actually seeing the actual Buddha. Not because we're worshiping that painted cloth on the wall, but because of the impression that makes on our own mind. If when we see a statue, we think we're seeing the actual historical Buddha, it makes a very positive impression on our mind stream. In terms of the Dharma, we should respect all text as being the actual Dharma. So the books, all our Dharma books, we should treat them with respect. And then the Sangha, every time we see just one Sangha member, and here we're talking about the robed Sangha particularly, we should see them as the representation of the entire Sangha and treat them with the appropriate respect. So 3 practices. One in regards to the Buddha. Depictions of the Buddha we should look at that as the real Buddha. We know it isn't, but if we think that I am seeing the actual Buddha, that makes an incredible imprint on our mind. The Dharma, we treat the text as representing the actual Dharma, and the Sangha, we see one Sangha member as representing the entire Sangha. And then the Buddha also gave us some general advice when we take refuge. The first piece of advice is, I'm just going to read these. I don't think you need to write these down. One should rely upon holy beings, listen to the holy Dharma, and after correctly comprehending, follow the Dharma and practice it. One should not let one's senses become excited. That is, one should control the senses when in danger of creating negative karma, and take as many vows as one is capable of keeping. And we'll talk about vows. One should not let one's senses become excited, because that's what causes one to create negative karma. And we should take vows. One should have a compassionate attitude towards sentient beings. And then the last piece of advice, whenever eating or drinking, one should make effort to offer to the 3 jewels. One should train well in the refuge precepts, exerting oneself to make offerings to the 3 jewels. So every time you eat or drink something, imagine that you're offering part of that to the 3 jewels. Okay? So just 3 general advice for those people who take refuge. So typically, at the same time, it's almost always, as part of the refuge ceremony, one is given the opportunity to take what's referred to as the 5 lay vows. Okay? And so that brings up the whole subject of vows. There are different levels of vows in the Buddhist tradition. And in the Tibetan tradition, there are 3 main levels of vows. The first is referred to as the pratik, and there are different ways of spelling this. Pratimoksha vows. Okay. Can they see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Then there's the Bodhisattva vows. And then there's the Tantric vows. Okay? Pratimoksha vows, Bodhisattva vows, Tantric vows. 3 levels of vows. And people hear the word vow and they automatically think, no fun. Things I can't do. Limits on my behavior. And I think that's a natural reaction. Let's see, am I wandering out of the camera? Excuse me. I need to be on a little chain, with a certain, that's what, vows, I need to be on a chain. Vows, in Buddhism, we think about vows as protecting ourselves, ways of protecting our mind. If I do that, it causes problems. So I'm going to make a commitment not to do that. Like most of us have made a vow not to step in front of a speeding car. And I don't think we think that as no fun or punishment or being dull. We know it's going to prevent us from suffering. So vows in Buddhism are of the same sort. The Pratimoksha vows are the vows of individual liberation. I'm sorry, how far can I go over here?
I can turn the camera.
Okay. Thank you. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Okay?
I just stuck my finger.
Okay. Pratimoksha vows are the vows of individual liberation. Okay? If we follow these vows, we stop creating negative karma and we remove ourselves from the cycle of samsara, forced rebirth. Okay? And the basic idea of these vows is not harming others. Do no harm. Okay? If you stop harming others, you're not creating negative karma and you will not suffer. So that's the protection for yourself that you have here. And there's 7 different types of pratimoksha vows in most categories, but there's another one that may be 7 or 8, but typically you think of 7. And these are very straightforward. There's the male lay vows, the female lay vows. Then there are 3 levels of vows for the female ordained people, the nuns, and there are 2 levels of vows for the male monks. And I am not qualified to explain why there are more levels of vows for the nuns than the monks. But that's the way it is. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so in the refuge ceremony, you typically take the lay vows. Okay? And they're identical for male and female, but they're considered 2 different types. Males, and then 3 for nuns, and 2 for monks. So we'll go back and talk about the lay vows, because those are the ones that you may be taking if you participate in a refuge ceremony. The Bodhisattva vows, they're primary vows and secondary vows. There are about 20 in each category. They're very detailed, very complicated. These are these are motivated by bodhicitta. These are about helping others. Okay? Pratimoksha vows are about not harming others. Then you move into your graduate studies and you take the Bodhisattva vows, and that's about actively helping others. So these are primarily things you're not going to do. These are primarily things you do, okay? The tantric vows you take if you take a tantric initiation with a qualified master, and each time you take that initiation, you take a set of tantric vows. And they're pretty similar from one tantric practice to another. Tantric practices being elaborate meditations that we use to kind of the final level of refinement before we come to enlightenment. So I'm not going to talk about that, but the tantric vows you take when you take a tantric initiation. Pratimoksha vows at any level, the lay vows, the monks or the nuns, you take one time, okay? So the lay vows you would take with your refuge ceremony, you take the vows once and that's for life. After that, you can sit in on the refuge ceremony and kind of recommit like a recommitment wedding ceremony, but you officially only take the vows one time. Okay, so you're taking them with the master who's conducting the refuge ceremony. The Bodhisattva vows you can take many times with different masters, okay? And the tantric vows you take each time that you're taking a tantric initiation. If you go to a tantric initiation, the master who's giving the tantric empowerment, will typically run through the lay vows and the bodhisattva vows very quickly before you get to the tantric vows, sometimes so quickly that you don't even know that it's happened. Okay. And these are all based on, you have to have taken refuge, a formal refuge, before you can take these vows. You can't jump in and take any vows without having participated in a refuge ceremony. I mean, there's not going to be somebody at the door, asking for proof that you've taken refuge, but for them to really be taking any of these sets of vows, you have to have taken refuge. Okay? So,
Robbie,
yes.
they can't hear me, but Don Brown sent a message saying for you to cough into your elbow.
There's nobody close around here. I'm setting a bad example. I can't get my elbow up to my mouth or I'd squish this little thing. Yes. Okay. So.
I guess we've lost.
Yeah.
We have 9 left.
Okay, good. So, everybody wants to know, what are the 5 lay vows that you would take as part of a refuge ceremony? Do you know what they are, Linda? Can I put you on the spot?
Let's see if I can remember. No killing.
Yeah.
They might not be in the right order. No stealing.
Yeah. Taking what's not freely given. No killing. No stealing.
No lying.
Uh-huh.
No taking of something substances.
No, yeah, okay. I'm going to give them no sexual misconduct.
Yes.
So everybody wakes up all of a sudden. People say, what does he mean by that? And it's defined in various ways, some of which are quite graphic. But here we can say not having sexual relations with someone else's partner, or having sexual interrelations in such a way as to cause unwanted physical or mental pain. And the last one is no intoxicants. And the reason we may take a vow not to consume any intoxicants of any sort is, under the influence of intoxicants, we tend to break the other 4 vows. We tend to kill, steal, lie, and indulge in sexual misconduct. That's the reason why intoxicants is in there. Now, so the big question everybody has, do I have to take all of these? Every refuge ceremony that I've been to, the master says you are, or it's implied that you can pick and choose. Okay. You do not have to take all 5. This is a decision you can make on your own. But even if you decide to take all 5, it is with an understanding that you probably won't be able to keep these vows perfectly for the rest of your life. And that is not a reason not to take the vows. Okay? Be patient with yourself. We're not Buddhas yet. Okay? But if we take the vow, that seed is planted in our mind stream. If we kill, we create negative karma. If we don't kill, we're not creating any karma. But said if we have a vow not to kill, and we don't kill, then we're actually creating positive karma. Okay, so by taking vows, it makes it much easier to create positive karma. Now we will break these vows, and that's where purification comes in. I'm not going to talk about that a lot, but we have to understand that we're not perfect. We will kill, we will steal, we will lie, sexual misconduct, but we can purify having broken our vows. And you'll frequently in the prayers that we do hear a reference to repairing broken vows. And that's why we say that a lot in the prayers here, because we know that all of us have broken our vows. Okay, so these are the 5 lay vows that will be given as part of the refuge ceremony. And these are taken once, they're taken for the rest of your lifetime. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
So these are the 5 lay vows. Are they, when you were talking about the Pratimoksha vows and there were 7 lay vows, are these 5 of the 7?
There's 7 levels, okay?
Oh.
These are the male lay vows and the female lay vows.
Okay.
Okay, this is then there are 3 sets of nun vows, 2 sets of monk vows.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yes.
Those are the 7 types of Pratimoksha vows.
I see. Okay, I was
okay?
confused. Thank you.
Yeah, but that does lead into my next point. I said there was possibly an 8th level, and this is not an official set of vows, but it's what's referred to as the one-day precepts. And it's similar to the vows in the Pratimoksha category. So sometimes it's listed there with them. And these are 8 vows that you'll take for 24 hours. And frequently we do those here at Kadampa Center on special calendar days. You can do these at home on your own. The first time you have to take them from a qualified master. So that has to be done either here at the center or somewhere else where a qualified master is teaching. After that, you can take them on your own anytime you want to. It's a way of purification, creating positive merit. Typically, you do it before the sun comes up, so you have to get up early. And there's a text for it. I think, is that in the Gold Prayer Book? The 24-hour precepts. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think it's in here, but it's easily available. It's not a secret teaching or anything. So when you take these, it's similar to the lay vows with some elaborations. For 24 hours, you're not going to kill, no killing, stealing, lying, no sexual conduct at all for 24 hours. Okay. Not eating at improper times, which conventionally is taken to mean you have one meal during that 24 hours, and it has to begin before noon on the day that you're taking the precepts, and you can eat for as long as you want, even if it continues after noon. But when you stop eating it, that's all you can eat for that 24-hour period. You can have water afterwards, but no other drinks. And generally, it's said that you should avoid black foods, and I've never quite understood that category, but it's onions, garlic, eggs, radishes. So these are foods that are felt to kind of excite you, and you can look those up if you're interested in doing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No dancing, listening to music, because that's considered a distraction from your practice. No jewelry or perfumes. And no sitting on high thrones. Those people who tend to sit on high thrones. But generally it's taken to mean don't put yourself above others during this 24 hours. Be humble. So these are the one-day precepts. The first time you do this, you have to take it from a qualified teacher. But after that, this is something you could do at home whenever you feel the need to purify or do a little bit. It's like fasting or giving up something for Lent. It's putting some boundaries on your behavior so that you really seriously avoid creating negative karma during that time frame. And I was asking, it's interesting, I was asking Don, do you have to take refuge? I've gone through a refuge ceremony to take the one-day precepts. And his answer was that, we've been together and individually, we've been at lots of teachings where you take precepts every day for the week. If you're there for a week-long teaching, you do it every day. And that's without having had a refuge ceremony. So there are obviously people participating in it who haven't taken refuge. So this, if you're new to the idea of vows, I think, again, don't quote me on this, you could do the precepts with a teacher here at Kadampa Center and then on your own without having gone through a formal refuge ceremony. So these are sometimes included in the Pratimoksha vows, but if anyone ever asks you how many types of Pratimoksha vows there are, the correct answer is, the technically correct answer is 7. Okay, but these are in the same category in that they're based on not harming others or yourself. Okay, so that is our time, I think. Yeah, I wanted to finish by 8. Did we have any questions come in from last time, Linda?
No, not that I received.
Okay. If you do have any questions, you can send them to Linda, and I'll try and give a written reply. Like I said, the qualifications for having completed this course are quite simplified. This is the first time we've done one that was half streaming, so it's a little bit out of the ordinary. But thank you, everyone, for participating. It didn't turn out the way we expected, but that's samsara. That's a big teaching. So let's just take a minute and again, something most of us probably aren't thinking a lot about right now, but we can actually rejoice that even in the middle of all this change and chaos going on right now, we have the time and the opportunity to come together either in person or over the internet, to think about these things, to work with our mind, develop our mind, begin to develop our innate capacity for compassion and for wisdom. And it's really wonderful that we have that opportunity. It's not something that just happened randomly. It's the result of past virtuous actions. In his song, Rinpoche says, the 2 most important teachings out of all the teachings the Buddha gave us, the most important, the most practical are first, understanding karma and how it works, and second, taking refuge in the 3 jewels. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Stay healthy. We will have another Discovering Buddhism module in 2 weeks. Venerable Lama is streaming practices on Wednesday night. I know Donna Cease is lining up some online teachings with Venerable Amy Miller, and there'll be more things added to the program during this time where we can't physically gather at the center. You're certainly welcome if you're out and about. You know, there are some restrictions on that, but I think it's acceptable under Governor Cooper's guidelines to come here to the center. You can walk around the stupa. If you want to do any tidying up around the grounds, that's greatly appreciated. But we just can't open the building up until further notice. So thank you, everyone. Stay well. Thank you, Linda.